Hi, I'm Mary, a librarian and book reviewer with a focus on stories written for kids, tweens, and teens. Today, I am joined by Tomeko Brown. With a passion for writing and music that began in her childhood, Tomeko honed her skills by playing the clarinet during her early school years, which helped her set the stage for her future artistic endeavors. Throughout her career, Tomeko has dedicated herself to inspiring and educating children of all ages. Tomeko's education includes a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Education and a Master's of Education in Instructional Design, along with a certificate in Early Childhood Services. Welcome, Tomeko. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Mary. First, I just want to thank you for allowing me to sit down and talk to you. It is so greatly appreciated. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, I'm so thrilled to have you. So tell us, Tomeko, a little bit about your book. Tell us about, yeah, whatever you'd like to share about it.
Okay, well, my book, An Instrument for Florenda, it actually relaunched in March of this year. It was March the 4th. Written by me, Christopher Smallwood, and illustrated by Youngju Kim. It is a story about a girl who's learned to play the clarinet for the first time. It's a story of a heartwarming story that I believe kids can relate to, especially when they're trying to learn something new, especially some like playing an instrument, playing a sport for the first time. And I think it will allow them to see themselves, in her story as she transitions, throughout her ups and downs and learning something new and just, being that kid, coming with those 11-year-old emotions, those challenges, like, I don't think I can do it. And I do believe that a lot of kids will resonate, with Florenda's story and help cheer her on as she's learned to play the clarinet for the first time. It is actually published by me through my brand called Moving Notes Books. So it is indie published. But I have had the opportunity and be blessed with hiring editors, working with Yeonju Kim, who actually illustrated the illustrations in the book, working with proofreaders. So I've had those opportunity to actually put in those professional publishing professionals to help me write this story so it could be the best possible stories, to kids that actually would pick up my book and read it. And I would hope they'll be able to actually resonate with the story, Florenda's story.
Absolutely. Do you have any of your own experiences that have found their way into the book as you grew up playing the clarinet? Were there any parallels that you worked in with that?
Actually, yes. I did play the clarinet as well as the co-author, Christopher. He played the clarinet as well. So we both used our experiences and kind of intertwined it, into the story, especially when it came with those emotional pieces. We both played the clarinet about around her age, Florenda's age, in those middle school years, and coming in playing an instrument for the very first time. It can be very overwhelming. It can be a challenge, because it's something you really want to do. You have a passion for it. And here it is, the opportunity has come. And now you're like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can do this or not, So we took, those emotional experiences that we both had in learning to play an instrument and intertwined it, into the story. And also there are pieces when Florinda's in the band class and now they're having those cheer competitions. And that's another emotional piece because you see your peers here, and some peers, oh, they got it. They're playing it, awesome. So now it's like, it's your turn and you want to sometimes just sink, up under your desk. And Florinda has those emotional pieces in the story where she makes a mistake and she wants to kind of just crawl under her desk because, here are her peers in the classroom, here's the teacher, you want to do a good job. So a lot of those emotional pieces from both of us we were able to intertwine it, into the story to let and really build the emotional impact so kids can actually, resonate with those pieces. Because yes, it's actually emotional pieces to where the co-author, we went through that, we lived those experiences because we were learning at one time trying to play an instrument.
Absolutely. I think a lot of that comes through in the story, and especially for those 11-year-olds reading it, they'll say, "Oh, this might feel intimidating, but I see this character who has gone through this situation, and maybe I can do it too."
Exactly, exactly. You have to
Okay,
push
so
through it.
exactly. What made you decide to become a writer?
Actually, I started writing in my childhood. I can't remember the exact age, but I used to love to dibble dabble and writing poetry. At one time, I tried to write a song. I used to keep almost, I guess, like with any child, um, whether it be writing or drawing, that was my comfort. I found comfort into letting the words, especially if I was feeling a certain way, I could always really release those feelings in words. So I would keep like a little journal or a notebook, and anything that would come to mind, I would start writing. I would just write. And that was, like I said, that I found comfort in writing, comfort into expressing my emotions, in my writing. And that's what, even as a child, that was my outlet. Because sometimes as children, we may not can express ourselves to adults how we may be feeling about something, but sometimes we can express it through our artistic abilities, whether it be writing, whether it be drawing. I did have a moment where I worked in the public school system, and I saw a lot of kids. They would express themselves through drawing. Even with my own daughter, as being a mom myself, sometimes she would express herself through drawings. She would draw something. I'm like, well, baby, are you sad? What's going on? And that's what writing did for me, as a child. And even in my ninth grade year, I was in home economics, and I actually still have the card. It's like over a decade old. So I'm kind of might be telling my age, but it's very old. And I wrote a poem for my FHA teacher's retirement, and the FHA actually had the poem frame, and they presented to her during her retirement celebration. And I was actually in ninth grade, and that moment that actually built my encouragement as I gotten older, with writing. I was like, okay, maybe I'm actually good at this, So and then of course as I became older as an adult, I saw, classes. I'm a member of the SCBWI, to where, I want to keep building on my skills, to make them the best, that they can. But I would love to share, but this is actually the card that my FHA teacher gave me. And yes, I still have it because I tend to pull it out and look at it. But I want to just share it. But it says, Dear Tomeko, the poem you wrote for the FHA to give me was lovely. I didn't know you had that talent. I should cherish it and always remember my years at Webb. I'm looking forward to retirement, but I know I will miss teaching. I may substitute sometimes, so I won't be completely gone. Thank you for your part in my nice surprise. Sincerely, my teacher, dated June 2nd. I won't say the year, but yes, but that it is something that I truly cherish. And it's something that has built my encouragement even into my adult years, over the years as I continue to write and hone my skills.
It's lovely to have things like that around you for those days that are inevitable, where you're writing and you're like, why am I doing this? And then you remember, this is why I'm doing this.
It just exactly. It still builds encouragement. It still builds encouragement
I
today.
love it. I love it so much. What made you decide to write books for this particular age group? So you say that you've written songs and poems, and now you have this middle grade story. So what drew you to this age group?
I've probably been a mom, and noticed books are amazing. Books have the power to encourage the dreamer. It has the power, books have the power to offer guidance to kids that are struggling. Um, Books are just, like I said, they're just amazing. And to watch my own kids, and then I had that moment also where I worked in the public school system. And sometimes kids can relate to a character in a book and see themselves, and it helps them transition through a challenge. Because sometimes as a kid, and even when I look back on my own childhood, you don't you don't know how to express those emotions. You don't know how to go to an adult to express your emotions to them, but you can see yourself in a character in a book, and that book, and you can resonate with, like, wow, even though it could be a fiction character, but it's just like, wow, they went through this. And this how they overcame that challenge. And that's what books can do. So I love writing kids book because I like the enjoyment behind it. I like to, put this character, to this feeling or to this challenge, and then actually see the character start out one way and progress into the next. And then to think that and when you look at children, they may start out in a situation, but to see them overcome that, that brings great joy. And especially like I can talk from working in the public school system as well as being a parent myself. When I see I have seen my children struggle with a particular area, a subject, but then see them progress through that challenge and actually become good at it and they get through it, that's a win-win. So to write for this age and to be a part of that, where I can actually inspire another child, through my stories, that that warms my heart. That warms my soul because I have done what I have intended to do. It's bring that, like I said, just the power of a book itself is so important, because it can resonate with so many people, so many kids, and it can allow them to grow, to reach their wildest dreams, to give them that push, over that challenge to say, you know what, I can do this. And sometimes that's all it takes is either a story to tell them they can do it, um, especially if they can't talk to an individual or they don't feel comfortable talking to an adult yet. And also, I'm going to share this story. When my daughter was younger, she loved the Jungle Book. And we would read, she was about 3 years old, and we had of course, it was like the Disney version of the Jungle Book. So it's real thin, like with the pictures in there. And it was one particular section. It was where Car would make those snake sounds. And she wanted us to read that one page over and over and over again. And of course, we had to act it out. But the joy behind it was the joy that came out of her, out of that book, that one page. And that created those moments that would open up those bonding moments with a parent and a child. That's the power of a book. And it also, books allow you to open up those crucial conversations with kids, especially if you're sharing, a story with them. They may say, well, mom or dad, I've had a similar situation to this. And sometimes as parents, you don't know everything because you're not with your kids 24/7 at school. And you're like, okay, well, how did you handle that? What happened? And that opens up the door to those conversations. So yes, that's why I chose to write for this age group because I know how important, to inspire kids this age, how important for them to have something to relate to. Like I said, I found comfort in my writings growing up. So I could go on and on because yes, that age just so vulnerable. And I guess I'm probably talking from my mother's perspective. That age, like I said, is so vulnerable. And to have those opportunities to open up either conversations or to encourage that age groups to push them through, it's very important. That's why I love writing for this age group.
Wonderful. One of the things that I really like about your book is that Florenda, the primary focus is her challenge with the clarinet, but she actually has several other struggles that are kind of sitting as her foundation that she has already worked through. She's a really tenacious character, really resilient, and I just like how multidimensional she is. Even though clarinet is the focus, you see all of these other elements of her story that make her visible to people who may or may not always see themselves in books. And I think that that's really lovely.
Yes, thank you.
Do you have a favorite character in this story? And if so, what makes them your favorite?
There's so many parts in the book. There's so many characters from Nate and Lily, her friends, those ones that support her, within her school environments, to of course the Lyles, which is that elderly couple that's in the community that everyone graduates towards, But I would absolutely have to say, of course, it's the main character. It's Florinda. Because like you mentioned, she has maneuvered through so many different family dynamics, not just playing the clarinet. She was once in the foster care system. So now she's living with her adopted mom, and they have maneuvered through, different, challenges, family challenges, in their life, whether it be financial and things of that nature. But like you said, it shows her perseverance, her determination that she wants to play, the clarinet. That's what she's finding her comfort in, which is in music, that could be maybe it's her outlet, to help her to focus, to calm herself. She can pick up her instrument, and that's her outlet to everything that's going on around her. But yes, why I chose Florinda. She's 11, and yes, she has come from all these different, family dynamics, but she's still able to persevere through them. So I feel that any child can resonate, to this story and to her because everyone doesn't come from the same family dynamics. We all come from different family dynamics, and that's the beauty of it. Whatever that dynamic is, you can come in and you can see her, like I said, persevere through all these challenges. There may be a struggle that no one else, not even her best friends, Nate and Lily, know about, but she's so focused in, I want to learn this instrument that she would do what she needs to do. That she can do for being 11 years old to order to play this instrument and to be the best that she can be. So that what makes, her the the absolute perfect character, for as far as being my favorite. It's because it shows kids how to maneuver through different challenges when you're faced. And it opens up that door for them to see themselves, in that in her because like I said she's in a different family dynamics and there's so many challenges and each family is different but they can see themselves somewhere within her story so that's why Florinda is she's one of my favorite characters. She is my favorite character.
I can tell. I like that. So you've alluded to this a few different times as far as the the fact that writing this book helps readers of this age group see themselves in the story. But what do you hope that readers come away with if there's something that you haven't already shared uh, from reading this book or other works that you do?
Just be themselves, whatever their personal goals are, to know they can reach them. But as while you're trying to reach them, be authentic. Let your own voice shine. Don't try to impersonate someone else because you'll notice that there are moments when it comes to playing an instrument, especially when you're in band, there are moments you'll get into that comparison era, that stage, especially during cheer competitions, or you see one of your peers, oh wow, they can play that note better than I can. You get into discouragement. Will I ever be able to play that good? You know, don't get into that comparison stage. Like I said, be yourself. You will get there. Um, I had to learn that. Even when I played the clarinet as a child, I have to teach that as a parent to my child. You will get there. It may take a little bit more practice, a little bit more hard work, but you will get to where you're going. Don't give up. Don't get into well, they're doing it better than I can. No, not necessarily. They maybe worked hard. They are working hard to get there. You can do the same thing. You can work as harder, you can practice, but your dream is not unreachable. And also, just because you think you haven't reached that goal yet. There are so many different ways, so many different avenues. Sometimes it may take slower times to get to a goal or to get to a destination, but that does not mean that you can't get there. And it's so important, for kids to realize that, you may not have gotten there yet. Say you're trying to make an A on a test. And right now you're at a C. It's okay. Continue to work hard, continue to study, and you will eventually get to that A. And that's why I don't want kids to give up. I want them to pursue and to go and reach their goals and to reach their dreams. And that's what I want. That's what something else that I want this, especially perseverance. That's the biggest key, to this book. And I probably talked a lot about perseverance, but that is just so important. Persevering, through whatever you're trying to do as a child and to get there, because you will get there.
That's a really great message. It actually, reading this book brought me back to my own band days and comparing myself to, the chairs above me and then the stress of having the test and all of the other things and pressures on your time. I wished I'd had
Yes.
this book when I was that age to be like, oh, it's not so bad. Why don't you just work a little? It's
Yeah,
okay.
exactly, exactly.
What advice would you give to authors or readers as they're embarking on their personal journeys?
I'm a big believer of being yourself, being authentic, to yourself, but especially to authors, finding your own voice. And as a writer myself, I guess I kind of sometimes you're like, wow, you read a story of what somebody else has wrote, and you're like, wow, and you can't. It's so easy to get into that, wow, that comparison stage. But your voice is your voice. Your story is your story, and there is someone out there that's going to need to hear your story, need to hear it in your voice. That's what's going to resonate with those readers. And to those readers, I want you to just, find that book that you can relate to. Every, story is not for everyone, but there is a story, out there. And I want them to, see themselves, especially they pick up a book and they start reading it and they see some of the challenges, really horn into that character on how they're maneuvering through those challenges. They're getting through it. They're reaching their goals. They're doing what they're set out to do. So as that reader, try to, really focus in, on that story. And if something resonates with you, always be true to yourself, be authentic, keep your own voice and yes, just, follow your hopes and dreams. So yes, that's
Good advice. Good advice for everyone, I think.
that's
Do you have any other projects in the works? Any more
I
Florinda stories?
as far as Florinda's story, I do want to do a continuation from her story as she finish out the middle school band and kind of transitions over into I do have something in the works, but I guess like any other writer, you have so many ideas that you want to get on paper. That they're sometimes it's just like they're coming at you, and you just write anything. For me, anything I pick up, any type of scrap paper, anything these days, I'm just jotting down those ideas. But as far as with Florinda, I do want to continue her story, and I had do have a thought. I had sat down with the co-author, and we do have a thought about, putting her into like some type of summer camp, kind of taking it from there, throughout the summer, and kind of, see how that goes. Because now she's getting older, she's gotten, learn how to play an instrument, kind of the feel for it. So now let's, take it a little further and see, how that goes. But outside of her story, I have completed three picture book manuscripts that now I'm in the query trenches, trenches, like some of the other authors are, working on trying to get an agent. So yes, I have queried, three completed ones. So we're going to see how that goes. So hopefully some comes from that.
Yes, good
As we
luck.
go forward. But yes, I'm still looking forward to learning, um, taking more webinars, taking more courses to really, just continue my skills, in writing, continue to learn more how to bring this writing for whether it be younger ages, picture books or middle grade kids to really know how to set those stories and those plots that will really be a great read or a great book, for those ages, especially for kids.
Excellent. Best of luck to you. That's
Thank you.
perseverance in action, really. See from waiting to hear
Yes.
back. So I've asked you a lot of questions. Is there something that I haven't asked you that you wish that I had?
Um, it would probably be what was my favorite book. I do have a favorite book, and I had read it when I was in my childhood, and I still have read it to this day. And the theme behind it kind of resonates and reminds me of my story. And the book that I'm talking about is Charlotte's Web. Oh, my old time's favorite by E.B. White. I love that book. I still have it to this day. And I actually still pull it. I have shared it with both of my kids when they were growing up. But what I truly enjoy about that book is the sense of community that story builds. You have Wilbur and you have Charlotte and you have the other animals on the farm. And that's what resonates. I love stories that resonate and talks about community. Community is so important. And when I talk about community, I talk it from the point, um, it can be your parents, it can be your teachers, it can be your next door neighbor, um, anyone. Though that is your community. And that's what I love about Charlotte's Web. And that's what if somebody said, well, what would be a title that you would probably sit your book beside? I said it would be my favorite book, Charlotte's Web, because they both talk about community. You will read about Florenda's story, and you'll see her community, her foster mom, her neighbors, the Lyles. And like I said, when you read Charlotte's Web, it talks about community, and it shows how the community supports Wilbur, the pig. Like I said, it is my all-time favorite, and that's a book that I truly enjoy because they both talk about the community. And when you read either book, and as a child, you can think back, and parents, this could be a conversation to open up with your kid. Who would you say is your community? If you could ask your child, who do they think is their community? Because it's important for them to know that there are people out there that they can look at that's going to push them forward to help them reach their dream, to reach their goal. And when you look at Charlotte's Web, you have this pig, but then you have Charlotte and these other barn animals, and they're trying to push Wilbur into his goal. But they're also trying to save him too. But yeah, but that's his community. So then when you look at Florinda, you have her community, her foster mom, her friends, Nate and Lily, her neighbors. That's her community, her band teacher. They're all there to help get them to where they're going, to the positive side of life, to get them to where they're going. And that's, like I said, that's one story that I will always love, especially from the community piece. Because everyone, like I said, everyone has, their community. You just have to figure out, who is my community? Who are the groups of people to help push me forward, so I can be the best version of myself.
That's a beautiful answer. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
Tomeko, where can folks find you? Where's a good place for them to look for your work, to learn more about the projects that you're working on?
My website, tomekobrown.com. You can find me. That has links to my books, links to interviews that's on there, links to where you can purchase. I'm big supporter of indie bookstores. So if you go on bookshop.org, there's a link to it from my website to where you can find your favorite, indie bookstore, to find my book online. Of course, there's also a link to Amazon, to Barnes and Nobles .com to where you can find it. If you're looking for an electronic version, you can get it on Nook, Kobo, as well as Amazon Kindle. But yes, this all information you want to learn about me and my books, just go to tomekobrown.com. There's also links to my social media profiles. Come follow me on Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, LinkedIn, but there are links right there on my website. And if you happen to pick up my book or you have read it, please, I would love to hear what you think about it, please reach out to me, whether it be social media or through the contact page on my website, and just share your thoughts.
Thank you so much, Tomeko. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today. And if an instrument for FLORENDA or any of Tomeko's other work sound like great fits for you, I hope you look for them wherever you get your books.
And
Thanks,
thank you,
Tomeko.
Mary. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.